Okay. Okay. Okay, nice. Next is, nak multiple pin tak boleh kan? Sekejap Tapi ada orang dah masuk ke? Dua orang dah masuk. Hi everyone, welcome to the webinar today. Just give us a few minutes and we'll begin shortly. Hi everyone, we'll just be waiting for a few more participants to join before we start. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this joyous Saturday for an insightful webinar forum discussion. I hope you are doing well and staying safe, as well as adapting to the new normal. I'm Sharifah Hassana, and I'll be your host for today. This time around, we have specifically organized a forum discussion between our expert dietitian and clinical psychologist on the topic, the triple pandemic, obesity, mental health, and COVID-19. Now, let us introduce our esteemed guests. Mr. Muhammad Siddiq Azhar, Head of Dietetics and Services Department at Diet Ideas. Dr. Jamila Hanum Abdul Qayyum, Assistant Professor and Clinical Psychologist from the International Islamic University, Malaysia.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Siddiq and Dr. Jamila. So I hope everyone is just as excited as I am to get insights on how to overcome the hurdles of mental health and weight management, especially in COVID times. But before that, let's just talk a little bit about what Diet Ideas does. Diet Ideas is Malaysia's first mobile and virtual dietetics and nutrition consultancy company that uses DNA technology and blood tests to personalize the intervention to the clients. In Diet Ideas, we do provide other services such as virtual consultation, health talks, nutrition confinement packages, and even home visit nutrition classes. So we do cover diseases such as general health and wellness, diabetes, hypertension, kidney problems, and many more. We aim to improve our clients' health with sustainable lifestyle changes as well as minimize medication intake. So now let's not wait any longer and let's begin. So the pandemic has generally affected everyone physically and mentally, be it positive changes or negative impacts. I think personally for myself, the pandemic has definitely changed me as a person. I come out of the pandemic as a whole different person. I'm not so sure if it's completely positive or maybe there are some negative side effects. But maybe, Mr. Siddiq, in your experience, you could share with us, how has your encounter been with your clients at Diet Ideas?
Okay, so thank you, Hassana, for the question. Okay, so in regards to the nutritional aspect, right, everyone has been hit differently by the pandemic. So some have a minor inconvenience, but some have something that really changed their life. But I can say that for most of us, perhaps you can see this for yourself, that a lot of us have actually gained weight throughout the pandemic, right? And this is something that you can see either for yourself or for people that are surrounding you. Okay, so let's get back into the negative consequences. Some have hit by a minor inconvenience, I would say. So in regards to this minor inconvenience, due to the working from home status, which means that we are currently working at home, which leads to a high food availability. Fridge is just a reach away, right? So this actually creates a problem where people might not have much control in regards to their snacking habits or just food intake in general. Okay, but for some people, there is actually a huge impact on their life due to the pandemic itself, and this comes in the form of a death of a family member. Okay, so as we all know, COVID have a relationship with other diseases. In terms of that, for example, diseases such as obesity, diabetes, and also cholesterol can actually make COVID more dangerous. This is what we call as comorbidities. Okay, so for some of these clients, for some of these people, they have a death of family member related to this aspect. So this sort of really makes them feel more stressful, and this actually changed the outlook of life. So we have clients actually signing up after learning about this because they don't want to suffer the same fate. So they want to have a more positive outlook for their life, a better health for their future life. Okay, but at the other side, we also have people that have a positive experience from the pandemic. Okay, so also due to the work from home nature, they actually are able to make better food choices because they are able to cook and they are able to actually, how do I say this, adjust their food intake accordingly to their dietary needs. Because for some of my clients, they actually had to go outstation and perhaps have to eat outside. And this actually creates a problem for them to actually choose a better food that suits their dietary needs. So in general, I would say that every one of us, yes, we have been hit differently by the pandemic, but for some it can be positive and for some it can be negative. But whatever it is something that we have to cater into and we have to adapt to. Okay, thank you, Hassan.
I see. Yes, that's totally understandable. Like I said, I think personally for me, it has impacted me in some ways positively, but also in some ways, I think it did inch on me a little bit on the negative side. But maybe, Dr. Jamila, would you agree with what Siddiq has said? I believe as a clinical psychologist, you may have also encountered a similar nature of issue when it comes to seeing your clients or seeing some changes.
Yes, Hassana, and I totally agree with Siddiq when he informed that some people react or respond positively and some people respond negatively due to COVID-19. And as a clinical psychologist, I am meeting people with mental health issues. Some of them are people with depressive disorder, anxiety disorders, and even eating disorders. And COVID-19 has affected many of my clients, and they feel stressed out when we live in an environment that full of uncertainties. COVID-19 makes us feel difficult to control our life, and COVID-19 makes us feel difficult to predict what will happen in the future. We live in an environment that we call as VUCA environment, full of uncertainties. And some of my clients use food to cope with their stress. I also sometimes use food to cope with my stress. I'm aware of that. And my clients are also aware of it. They acknowledge that this behavior is unhealthy, but it seems it's quite difficult for them to manage their emotions without food at the moment. I agree with Siddiq. The fridge is just few steps away, and our snacking behaviors somehow change tremendously when we are at home. I think that's all, Hasana.
I see. Yeah, I can imagine. It's very interesting, especially the 5 steps away from the fridge. I can't relate more than that. So it seems that our food habits and our mental health is very closely knitted together. Without the other, we won't be able to balance a healthy lifestyle internally and externally. You have to be doing good. So, Dr. Jamila, do you mind sharing on how an unhealthy relationship with food could essentially be detrimental to our overall health in the long term?
Sure. Um, if we go back to history, we know that our ancestors hunted, gathered food for food to survive. And it was not an easy process. We do not need to bring back to those early ages. I still remember when I was a kid and when I visited my grandparents at Rembau, Negeri Sembilan. They would slaughter a good quantity, a good amount of chicken to serve us. And the process, I still remember, the process took a while. It took time in order for us to serve ourselves with food, in order for us to eat. A lot of process take place. And now it's different. It's totally different. It is very easy for us to get access to food. As easy as, just clicking something on our palm while waiting in front of our computer screen or mobile phone screen. We will get our food in about 30 to 45 minutes. So less activities, behavioral activities involved in order for us to get access to food today. So modern people like us do not only use food to survive. We use food for many reasons. We use food to make us feel happy. We use food to comfort ourselves when we feel sad. We also use food to enjoy our social gatherings. And being Malaysian, we know that we have so many celebrations. And next week is our Deepavali. And we know that now we can celebrate that together with our Hindus friend. And we also psychologically believe that it is right for us to use food to all these activities to make us feel comfortable, to make us feel enjoy. And this actually has distorted our relationship with food. When these extra calories registered in our body continuously, and it will bring us to a different type of problem. We invite ourselves basically in a vicious cycle between ourselves, our food, our physical health problems, and also our mental health problems. If we do not correct this relationship, if we do not rethink our relationship with food and keep using food to heal our emotion, to heal our mental health problems, we may fall into the trap of excessive weight gain. And we know a lot of problems will come after that.
Yeah, I can totally agree. It seems that, even for me, as you were saying it, I can imagine, like, when we talk about Malaysia, Malaysia's food heaven, there's every type of food that you can imagine. You just want to devour all the food, but you may not realize that at the end of the day, while you're devouring it, you maybe not the best relationship with food there. So it's probably better to actually, maybe we can get an insight from Mr. Siddiq. How have you personally, as a dietitian, incorporated your clients' mental health into the aspects of food habits into your consultations?
Okay, so in regards to this question, as a dietitian and I guess, so this is something that we must do with our clients in regards that we have to discuss about, I would say, the psychological obstacles. So one of it is about the anxiety of expectations. So this isn't just limited to weight loss, but it can also be related to other disease. But let's talk about weight loss first. Okay, so whenever we come through a weight loss client or anyone that have any weight loss goals, we of course have some sort of expectation or presumption of how things would go. So certain questions that we might receive, or is most probably is something in everyone's mind, is this: will diet really actually helps in improve my condition? Okay, that is one of the most basic question. And then we have others that ask about how long can I expect to see any results by applying this kind of diet? And of course, one of other important things that we also have to discuss with our client is, will these changes in diet is sustainable for a long term? Because obviously we want to keep off the weight and we want to make sure that it is something that we can do for a lifetime. So that is the first thing, is about the anxiety of expectation. Secondly, is about tackling misconception. Of course, whenever we want to do something, we sort of have something preconceived in our minds in regard to the matters. So when it comes to weight loss, let's take an easy example. We are a rice eating nation. Rice is a staple in our diet, right? So when it comes to weight loss, people will always ask, can I have rice in my diet? Do I really need to eliminate the rice for me to have a weight loss? And if it's possible for me to have rice, how do I incorporate it and still be able to make a weight loss? So this is something that we sort of have to educate first to eliminate this kind of misconception. And lastly is about craving. So craving, I believe everyone has some sort of craving, so it can be quite a distressful situation, especially when we know, as Dr. Jamila has said before, craving is something that we intuitively know is something that not really something that we want to do, right? Because we know that it has some bad effects. But of course, this is not 100% wrong. This is something that we can discuss. So let's take an example for an easy example of ice cream, okay? So you want to have a weight loss and you want to have an ice cream. So is it something that you can have it? Can I have it? Yes, of course, you can have ice cream actually. So you can satisfy your craving, but what we need to discuss is in terms of the types of ice cream, the amount of it, and of course the frequency of it. So this is something that we have to discuss in length. So for us to actually incorporate it, satisfy our craving, and still manage to have a weight loss. So looking back to the questions, so do we assess mental health of a client or anyone that is coming into their ideas? Yes, we do. Actually, it's a must. It's something that we have to do, because for us to actually have a sustainable weight loss or any kind of diet, we must take a holistic approach in terms of how we look into it and how we practice it for a lifetime. Yes.
Very good point there about holistic approach. I agree. I think sometimes, when I seek for advice when it comes to diet, I get a very narrow, okay, you're supposed to eat this, you're not supposed to eat this. But maybe sometimes I'm stressed at work, so I'm munching on things, or maybe, there could be a lot of things that's going on. So I think personally for me, my mental health affects my eating pattern. It affects my food habits. When I'm stressed, I'm probably eating a lot more sweet things. And when I'm not stressed, I'm probably, a bit better and more conscious about what I'm eating. So I'm glad that the ideas, you guys are actually incorporating it as part of, your routine in assessing your clients. So given that our discussion today is pivoted on the struggles of mental health and food habits, perhaps our speakers could share with us the best approach, or maybe the most recommended approach in navigating and managing the obstacles in creating a healthy relationship with food. So Mr. Sid, do you want to go first?
Okay, sure. Okay, so thank you, Hasana, for the questions again. Okay, so how do we want to develop a healthy relationship with food, is it, right? Okay, so first thing first is perhaps this is the most important factor out of all other factors is actually our willpower. Okay, so people come into weight loss, especially, they have a lot of goals, be it for vanity or if they just want to be healthy. So this is something that we want to figure out in the first hand. So because if anything that comes with the goals itself, we must tackle any sort of misconception that is available within there so that you can have a realistic expectation in terms of whatever goals that you are pursuing. And then comes the second part, which is about the knowledge. Okay, so when you want to go for a diet, especially when we talk about weight loss diet, right? So we go into lots of info, especially in our globalized world. It's very easy to get info, but due to this situation also, it can be very stressful for us to sift through all of this information that might be conflicting or too good to be true. Okay, so let's take for example, perhaps this is something that you might have heard in commonly. So can you really lose 6 kilo in 6 weeks? Right? So this is one of the, I would say, more common advertisement that you can see across online. So at Diet Ideas, we have people, a client that actually managed to lose 16 kilo in 3 weeks. I'm sorry, in 3 months. So 16 kilo in 3 months. So it's very possible. But of course, this is based on an individual basis. So whatever it is, again, it comes back into knowledge, into knowing the goals, and then it's something that we have to discuss whether it's something suitable for you or not. Okay, and lastly is about forming habit. Okay, so practice, any kind of practice, whether it's about diet or anything else, but we are talking about diet here. So practice into habit doesn't come overnight. It's not something that can happen instantly. It's something that you have to do consciously. So this is why it's very important for anyone to have an extended monitoring and extended, I would say, supervision in terms of their diet so that this dietary application is something that can turn into a habit in long term. So I've come across, I've read a few sites whereby it said that perhaps you would need around 21 days or perhaps 90 days for you to create a habit. Okay, I'm not really sure because I'm not a clinical psychologist. So perhaps Dr. Jamila can elaborate some of this, I would say, myth or information. So whatever it is, the most important thing is to create a habit. So let's take an example of ordering teh tarik at Mama. Of course, the easiest way would say you want to have something that is kurang in manis lah. Of course, we don't just say, oh, just simply get rid of the teh tarik and get a plain water. I don't think everyone will agree with this, right? So like I mentioned before, we want to have something that is sustainable for us. So yes, you can have the teh tarik and try to get a kurang manis, but this is something that you have to do consciously in the first time or perhaps a few times. So it have to be for an extended amount of time till it becomes something that goes under your unconscious behavior, something that goes naturally for you. So coming back to the question, yes, to develop a healthy food relationship with the food, a healthy relationship with the food, it's important for you to actually discover about your goals and also to learn about it, whether it's something that is achievable, realistic, true, and anything else. And then, of course, to actually form a habit that will come in longer time. Thank you, Hassan. And that's all for me.
So Dr. Jamila, do you also want to share from your side perspective?
Hasana, it's as if I'm not listening to a dietitian. It's like a combination of a dietitian and psychologist, when I listen to Siddiq, and I'm so happy to know that dietitian in Diet Ideas also incorporated the elements of psychology. And because when we talk about mental health, when we talk about emotion, when we talk about behavior is a result of our thinking patterns and our emotion. And you know, I have a feeling that, oh, I think I need to register with Diet Ideas after this. Okay, coming back to the question, Hasana, yeah, regarding managing the obstacles, in creating a healthy relationship with food. So Siddiq has elaborated his answers. From the perspective of a dietitian, and as a psychologist, we both agree that best approach for individuals may be different from one another. And I would like to invite everyone, because I'm a psychologist, so I would like to invite everyone to go back to the core predictors of behavior, which is our thinking pattern. So it's very important for all of us to learn the cognitive or thinking pattern or psychological traps that may become a risk factor for unhealthy relationship with food. So this is probably new things, yeah. And we need to learn what are the sabotaging thoughts. What are the sabotaging thoughts that may create unhealthy relationship between us and food? For example, a black and white thinking pattern about diet. If we found that we have a thinking pattern that says it is either I do my diet correctly today or I will not do it at all. I must do my diet correctly this month or otherwise I'm not going to follow whatever dietitian's suggestions this month. I will just start it next month. These are the things that we usually heard in our clinic. And this kind of thinking pattern may doom us in a trap that only healthy or good food can exist in our life, and that is not realistic and not sustainable, especially when we live in Malaysia. This is a food heaven. Malaysia is a food heaven. And to create a more sustainable and healthy relationship with food, we need to accept that we will make mistakes along the road. We are normal human beings. We will make mistakes when we are dieting and when we try to be more healthy, slimmer, and more fit, and accept that that will happen because diet is not only 3 months, 6 months, or 9 months or 12 months. We are going to diet from the perspective of layman, yeah, not from the perspective of a dietitian. We are going to have this healthy relationship with food throughout our life. So that's my answer.
Thank you so much for sharing. I think for me, based on what I've heard from both our speakers today, from Dr. Jamila's side, is that it's true. Sometimes you fall into the trap of the all or nothing mindset. It's either I do it all, I do it nothing. But this is where it comes and relates to what Mr. Siddiq has said, where knowledge plays an important part. So if you're actually able to gain knowledge in terms of maybe correcting your misconceptions or maybe just pushing you and giving you that boost of like, yes, this is how I'm supposed to do it, it probably will remove your perception on, oh, actually I could probably eat this instead of this. It definitely gives you a better and more sustainable lifestyle, which is what we're trying to do here. Create a lifestyle rather than a diet, a short-term thing that you're just supposed to do the next 3 months and you'll be happy for the next forever. It doesn't work like that. So yeah, I'm really enjoying the point so far. So I wanted to ask that I do have a question. It's undeniable that adapting to the new normal is quite stressful. I find myself snacking as a coping mechanism, as I mentioned earlier, especially given that my kitchen has been 5 steps away. So it's been very easy. But I want to know, is that wrong? And how do I fix it, Dr. Jamila, from a psychological point of view?
Okay. Well, I also would like to say that I'm struggling to Hasana. If your kitchen is 5 steps away, I'm very lucky. It's about 10 steps or 15 steps. I'm not sure whether it is significantly different or not, but I'm struggling too. And I believe that there are so many people are struggling at the moment. And I also would like to openly, honestly say to all of you that I also have fallen into the traps many times because I'm a normal human being too. And talking about a psychological perspective on how to cope with these challenges, I would like to invite everyone to increase our knowledge and also the skills that can help us to cope, not only using food, yeah, because we know that that will trap us into a vicious cycle. So I'm inviting everyone to learn the concept, the strategies of mindful eating. And mindful eating is one of the coping strategy that not only we use to enhance our weight loss, but also our positive relationship with food. In brief, Hasanah, yeah, when we do mindful eating, we will use and focus all our senses and also our mind when we eat. We put away any able to be controlled distractions. I'm using the word able to be controlled distractions because with my clients always says that, oh, how can I manage my babies? They keep coming to me when I eat, and I can't really do mindful eatings. So there are things that we can control, there are things that we may not able to control, yeah, especially our infants, our toddlers, who are being created in a way that they need our attention. But our mobile phone, our TV, our computer screen, our books, these are the things that we can control and put away when we do mindful eating. And when we eat, we concentrate on our food. We sit down when we eat. I know that people like to snack and munch when they open their refrigerator, and that is actually a no-no in mindful eating concept. We also chew our food slowly, bite by bite, and focus on the sensations that we have in our mouth. What we can smell, what we can see, what we can touch, what we can hear. Of course, there are sounds, when we munch. It is just that we are fully distracted and we can't really sense, hear the sound. And these have been neglected by many of us. And studies have found that if we do mindful eating and incorporate mindful eating in our daily routine, it will not only help us to reduce and maintain our ideal weight, but it also indirectly improve our psychology, our mental health. And people who do mindful eating reported that they feel more satisfied psychologically and physically. They feel more grateful and able to stop before they feel full. That is what we want to have. Stop before we feel full. Then they also enjoy their food more. Brother Siddiq, Mr. Siddiq has mentioned that, oh, we of course, we also would like to celebrate our craving and we would like to enjoy our food. So how to enjoy our food? Through mindful eating. This will help us to mindfully create a positive relationship with our food with adequate or small amount of foods. Okay.
Yeah, actually, that's a very good point about mindful eating. As you're saying it, I remember that whenever I'm eating and I'm not really actually looking at my computer screen or watching something on TV or anything, it seems that I'm more aware of what I'm eating. But on days that I'm like, especially at home, right? I'm in front of the TV, I'm eating. I realize like at the end of it, I've probably like topped up my food twice or thrice. I've added more kuah. I've added this and that. So actually the concept of mindful eating in a way is a very good way to kind of like put your brain in the right place, put your mind in the right place. So I really like that. So maybe Mr. Siddiq also you could share with us when someone is stuck at their home and they are hungry after they've had their meals, what should they do?
Okay, so this is quite a common thing that happens, I believe, even for ourselves, right? Okay, so the situation is you are already hungry after you have the food. So this is not something that you expected. So this comes unexpectedly, right? Okay, so before I go with the suggestions, we must believe that every individuals are different. So whatever the thing is, there are still general guidelines that we can adhere to. And for anything that is more specific, it's something that we have to discuss in length. Okay, so first thing first is perhaps something that you also have commonly heard, but perhaps not something that you are able to actually do it, is about water intake. So sometimes we get confused between being hungry or actually needing more something that fills our stomach. Okay, so of course, water itself is something that can fill our stomach. So when our stomach is filled, it can send a signal to our brain, meaning that we already have enough of the things that is required for our body, for our standard of stomach itself. So having more water, actually trying to drink more water can actually helps to, I would say, resolve this kind of hunger that isn't really related to food actually. It's more something just feeling not enough with the stomach itself. And then secondly, this isn't just related about food, but it's also trying to find distraction. Okay, so everyone, when they come into work, sometimes you can work for extended duration of time without actually thinking about eating. So the same concept goes with that. Whenever you are hungry after you already had your meal, try to find some distractions. Of course, if you keep thinking about the food itself, it will stay on your food. But if you try to do something else, perhaps some hobby, or perhaps just walking around, it can actually helps to alleviate the hunger itself. And lastly, okay, this is a bit limited in terms of application. So it really depends on the capability of someone. But if you can try, if you are able to, then you can cook your own food. Of course, it's not cooking for you to have it right away, for you to cook it and to have it for the next meal. For my experience, I've talked with a lot of chefs, a lot of clients, and a lot of people that are involved in food business where they have to prepare foods. The thing about cooking is that is whenever you cook for an extended period of time, you yourself won't feel the need to actually eat it. I'm not really sure of what's the psychological issue behind it, but try to cook for yourself and then you will feel that, oh, this is something that I already cooked. I don't really have the need to eat it for some reason, but it works. Okay, again, this is something limited in application, but for those that are able to cook, so you can use this kind of technique to actually distract yourself from the hunger itself. Okay, and then of course, this might come quite frequently for some, right? So whatever thing, the other things that we have to do is to actually evaluate the meal that we have. Okay, so if this keeps coming on frequently, so there must be something wrong that we did with our meal. So the thing that we have to look into is in terms of the fiber itself. So fiber comes from the fruits and also vegetables is something normal. So is it adequate enough during our previous meal? Because the fiber itself will actually help you to feel to make you feel satiated. Okay, so having enough fiber will help you to do that. And then there is another thing which is about the protein. So the protein can comes from the various sources: chicken, fish, meat, and also egg, among other things. So protein can actually help you to satiate yourself, just like fiber itself. So you have to evaluate your meals whether it contains enough of the protein and also enough of the fiber. And lastly, and this can be quite irritating, I would say, or controversial, is that because you have to understand that whenever you are going for a diet, you want to lose your weight, you are actually going against your body requirement. So you are eating less than what you need. So there is expected some kind of expectation for you to be a little bit hungry. Of course, there is a varying levels of hungriness, right? But for you to have some sort of hungriness is something that you have to deal with, you have to hold into, because naturally this is what your body wants to do. It wants to keep the calories to maintain itself, but you are trying to go against it because you want to lose weight. Okay, so at the end of the day, it's about individualization. Whatever is available for your use. So it's the best thing for you to actually discuss with your dietitian or anyone else, especially for you to tackle the hunger issues, I would say, in the most suitable way for your individual life.
Those are very good tips. It seems that sometimes after you eat, you either feel super sleepy or sometimes you feel hungry. But I like that Mr. Siddiq's tips. For me, how I condense it is like, first you manage that hunger short term wise. So either you drink water or you distract yourself. If let's say after that short term you're still a little bit hungry, then you evaluate whether you actually need to eat or is it just that you're bored or something. And then you take action from there. So I like it: manage, evaluate, and take action. So that's a very good point there. So I think from this overall discussion, I can see that when it comes to managing your diet, when it comes to managing your mental health, creating the healthy food habits for yourself is so important. And the key is to first understand that restriction is not the goal. The goal is to understand your body's own cues, to work with your body's own cues, in order to make sure that you can actually, cultivate a healthy vessel for yourself. So I know I've learned so much learning from our speakers today. With that, I want to open the floor to questions. I'm sure there are some burning questions from our audiences today. You can ask our clinical psychologist, our dietitian, any questions you have pertaining to maybe how you could fix your food pattern or how you could fix your diet. If you have any questions, feel free to drop it and I will be sharing it with Dr. Jamila and Mr. Siddiq. Let's give everyone around a minute to just pop in their questions. This is your opportunity to get, to pick the brains of very, very amazing speakers here. Okay, then, since maybe everyone's shy or still digesting and still waiting for a question, then maybe I can ask a question first. So for me personally, I mean, I know we were talking about how weight loss is about understanding mentally how you could cope with it, and how you could also understand your own body's food patterns and so on. But I want to understand, right? Let's say I'm different, another person's different, and you did say about individualization, but um, how do I know if, let's say, today I'm probably not, I'm eating, I don't know, at the office, and I'm eating like a mama store, and then tomorrow I'm eating Domino's or something like that. It's everything is different, but how do I actually still make sure I'm still on the right track when it comes to maintaining good relationship with my food, as well as maintaining a healthy diet but still being sustainable? Mr. Sidi?
Okay, so this is also a quite common occurrence for everyone that is undergoing diet. So as I mentioned before, whatever it is, the first thing first is also about the knowledge and also willpower. Okay, so if you have enough of the willpower, actually you can turn the world upside down, you would say, right? Okay, of course, but sometimes we have to deal with whatever issues that we have. We have social issues, we have sometimes unexpected events where we have to abandon our diet. So when it comes to this case, knowledge is power. So whenever it comes into nutrition, the most, I would say, precise way for you to know whether you are having enough or taking more than you need is about counting the calories itself. Okay, so it's not just enough for you to actually know the calories of the food, but you also have to know how much your body needs, is what we call as our energy requirements. So, of course, this is something that you can find easily available online or anything else. But the thing about if you try to find it online, for example, what Hasana said is about pizza Domino's, right? Okay, so if you just simply type Domino's pizza calories, it will come with a lot of results. And again, comes back to a point beforehand, which is about there is too much info available online, right? So you have to sift through which one is true, which one is not. So this is something that we have to learn extensively for us to actually figure the most appropriate way and also the correct way in terms of counting the calories. So whatever you want to have, for example, you want to have a pizza or a nasi lemak. Yes, you can have it as long as you know the calories itself. But of course, it's not about just the calories, but also about the health. So in the end, it's something that we have to have a balance into. They say that you can lose weight if you are eating pizza for the whole day. Yes, that is actually true with the knowledge of calorie counting. But from the health aspect, is it something suitable? And is it, especially, is it something sustainable, which in relates to our healthy relationship with the food itself? Yes.
Yes. Okay, that's very interesting to know. But I do have a question before addressing. It seems that we've got a lot of questions coming. But on Mr. Siddiq's point, I have a question for Dr. Jamila. Now that we're talking about, like, finding a healthy way to eat and all, we could go to the extreme that we're too careful with our food, that it cultivates a mindset that you're too scared of everything. So it goes the opposite. Instead of, we were talking about like binge eating and snacking all the time as a coping mechanism of stress. But what would you say, how do you prevent from such unhealthy thoughts going towards ED, going towards eating disorder side?
Yeah, you're right, Hasana. When we really would like to lose weight, and sometimes we may take it to extreme, and we may involve in disordered behaviors, such as choking ourselves, or try to vomit whatever that we have eaten previously, and this is what we call a disordered behavior. And as a protective factors, based on the literature, based on the research that I have read, and based on my clinical experiences, um, if we found that we have this kind of extreme thinking pattern, this is where uh, we need to start to evaluate again the reasons why we have that, and what will the outcome will be. It goes back to be mindful of our sabotaging thought, and at the same time, if we are unable to be really mindful of our sabotaging thought, try to console ourselves by listening to what other people around us saying about our behaviors. People around us may be able to pick up this kind of disordered behaviors better than us. And if we listen or we get that signals from them, this is where we need to evaluate again our behaviors. If it's difficult for us to manage these disordered behaviors, I suggest it is the best time for us to reach out to medical doctor. Sometimes it is not only due to our psychological risk factors, but it may also be due to biological reasons, and medical doctors, psychiatrists may be able to help to assist us on how to manage that better.
Yeah, okay, that's a very good point to note as well. So another question we have from our audience here, Sri Ayu, is how to control our calories intake if the person has gastritis and need to eat frequently. And of course, the person might worry about the weight that she or he might gain. So how do you control between eating enough and not eating enough that it could induce gastritis?
Okay, so thank you to Miss Sri Ayu, is it right? Okay, so for the question, okay, so it's about gastritis, eating frequently, and at the same time, you have to manage in terms of the amount of calories. Okay, so back again to the basic, which is about knowing your requirement and also knowing the amount of food that you take, which is in terms of the calories. Okay, so for certain gastritis issue, you have to eat more frequently. Yes, that's understandable. But in terms of the types of food also matters. It's not just about the calories itself, because there are certain foods that can actually help you make, how do I say it, satiate yourself. It doesn't leave you hungry, but at the same time, it have less calories. So this is the kind of foods that can actually be catered frequently into your diet, but at the same time, still maintaining within the requirement that you have so that it doesn't actually make you gain weight. Okay, so for the example, the type of food is, although it's quite unconventional, but this is one of the other surprising foods, I would say, is about unsalted or unbuttered popcorns. Okay, so you know the white popcorns, but it's not buttered, obviously. Butter is high in calories. So these are the kings that are high in volume. And we also have vegetables, of course. And of course, there are certain fruits that are actually very low in calories, even though the volume is high. For example, especially berries, strawberries, blueberries. You can have a palm full of it. You can actually have several palms of it, even 4 palms of it, and it doesn't make a dent into your diet. Okay, so it's about knowing also the types of food. It's not just about the calories. Okay, so I believe that helps to answer the question.
Yes. So I think it goes back to the point of knowledge so that, if you're able to seek, a dietary advice, from an external party, given that you are experiencing this issue, getting a dietary consult may be, best for you so that you could probably get Mr. Siddiq there to come in and talk to you about, some further options that are more suitable to you, to your lifestyle, to your palate, because I'm sure everybody's a little bit different. So thank you, Mr. Sid. We have another question. When I get anxiety, I have an opposite result. I have no appetite at all. Can I have some tips to enhance my appetite? I think this could also be psychologically, right? Because this relates to your anxiety, making you lose your appetite. So, Dr. Jamila or Mr. Sid, which one of you would prefer to take the question?
Oh, okay. Maybe I can try first, Mr. Siddiq. When we have anxiety or even low mood, depression, there are people who have no appetite, and because of that, they lose weight without the intention to lose weight. So, as a psychologist, go back to the reason why we take food. If we take food to heal our emotion, this is where the relationship may get distorted. But if we slowly try to digest the idea that the reason why we take food is to give energy for us to move, for us to continue living, for us to function, we can get a dietary advice on what is the suitable food for us to continuously be healthy. It is not a matter of making sure we eat exactly as how we eat previously, but eat in a scheduled manner. So when the time comes, for example, I eat 3 big meals a day and 2 or 3 times snacking. So I know that this is a breakfast time. It should consist of simple, for example, carbo, protein, and fiber. So as long as it's there on my plate, I will eat it. So this is how I console myself psychologically that food is for me to to continue surviving and living. So that is how psychologically, and probably Mr. Siddiq can also add on in terms of diet.
Okay, so thank you, Dr. Jamila. Okay, from a dietitian perspective or from a nutrition perspective, first thing first, we have to evaluate in terms of the appetite itself. Whenever you said that you lose appetite, how severe is it? Is it something that you cannot take any kind of food, or is it just that something that you cannot take much? Which means that you can still take a little amount of food, but not as much that you actually have the feel to eat, right? So there are several levels of losing appetite. So there is something first that we have to figure out. And then second thing is that because the way that the question is posed, which means that losing appetite is something of a problem for you. So we have to look into the underlying goals. So if losing appetite is a problem with you, so why do you want to eat? So why is it a problem with you? Do you want to gain weight? Okay, so let's take example. If you want to gain weight, and then of course, losing appetite is not something that you want to have when you want to gain weight. So what we can teach is about, again, choosing the types of food. As opposed to the previous answer of the previous question, we have certain types of food that are actually, how do I say, energy dense. It's low in volume, which means that you can take only a little of it, but at the same time, it supplies a lot of energy or calories to you. So, for example, the things that are of this kind is avocado, or perhaps nuts, milk, and a lot of other options. It really depends on, again, individualization, something that is available for your, I would say, in your resource. Okay, so this is something that we have to discuss in length. So this certain of food, you only have to eat a little of it. So you don't really, I would say this is something that you can tackle. So you just take a little of it and you will get enough of the calories. So this is about actually gaining weight, because you want to be, I would say, losing appetite is a problem for you. But if it's for other reason, that is something that we also have to discuss. But again, it differs according to the situation.
Yeah, I agree. It definitely, maybe depending on the person and depending on maybe like what Mr. Siddiq has said, whether there's an underlying cause, whether it's your goal, definitely more information is needed to give a more personalized one. But I like that Mr. Siddiq did give some options in terms of any energy dense food. On some days that you don't feel like eating, there's something that at least you could get to give yourself some energy to continue with the day. So another question that we have from our guest is, I read somewhere that losing weight is also related to hormonal changes and age. Then how would I know what to do and what to eat since we do not have control over our hormones?
I'm sorry, Hasana, you were breaking up a little bit. Can you repeat the
Right.
question?
Let me repeat. So I read somewhere that losing weight is also related to hormonal changes and age. Then how would I know what to do and what to eat since we do not have control over our hormones?
Okay, so thank you to the one asking. Okay, so it's very good that you actually knowledge that this thing happens. Okay, so you already understood that this is something that we cannot actually overcome because it's something that goes naturally with our body. But this is something that we can actually, how do I say, take into account. Because whenever we, again, back to the calorie counting, right? This is about the energy balance where you have to eat a certain amount for you to actually maintain a certain amount of weight, right? So in terms of the age, it's already something that we already take into factor. Okay, the more you age, of course, the less calories that you will need. This is a general guideline. Okay, so we already, despite the age, despite the height, despite the weight, or despite the situation, is already something that we can actually calculate. Okay, so which means that it is something that we can still tackle into, we can still know the amount of food that we need, and then from there on, we can still take the foods that we want to, as long as we adjust it to the amount that we need or our energy requirement.
So based on what I understand, it seems that even though in a way we don't have control over our hormones, but there is a way to tackle in terms of dietary to make sure that you're still on the right path when it comes to having a healthy diet, ensuring that you're in the right weight and so on. Am I right?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. So, okay, one last question before we wrap up the session is it true anxiety and stress makes you more fat? Maybe Dr. Jamila could give her point of view on this.
Yeah, based on the research, anxiety and depression are the psychological risk factors that can increase our weight. So that is the answer. Research has found that yes, anxiety, depression is a psychological risk factor for overweight and obesity.
I see. Would you say that in your experience, would you say that it could be because um, psychologically, sorry, not psychologically, like pathophysiology, like inside the body, something's going on? Or would you say it's because it affects their behavior or their patterns and their habits and so on?
As a psychologist, probably the pathophysiological part is something that I may not want to comment. But of course, in terms of behavior, as madam has stated there, stress eating, when we emotionally eat, we have been talking about a healthy and unhealthy relationship with food and using food to heal our emotion. When we fall into the trap of stress eating, when we fall into the trap of emotional eating, this is also involve our emotions towards food. Yeah, the way we perceive food, because when we feel sad, when we feel stressed, oh, I have the right to feel happy. These are the thinking pattern that we have. I have the right to feel happy. How am I going to feel happy? Let's go and eat, etc., etc. I don't want to mention any brand, but boba tea. Oh, I have the right to feel happy. And what's the best and easiest thing to the easiest and best thing to do is to eat. And when we do that, we fall into what we call stress eating or emotional eating. And only with knowledge, only with strategies to be mindful. When I talk about strategies, it is a skill. When we talk about skill, it is a combination of knowledge and doing things again and again, experimenting things. Yeah, do some weakness and realizing it and do it again. It's about skill. So when we are mindful on ourselves, we are mindful of our relationship with food, then we can combat or manage our stress eating. The vice versa of stress eating is mindful eating. But in order to do mindful eating, it's easier said than done, but we need knowledge and we need to know how to do it and do it as how Mr. Siddiq has informed. To inculcate or to cultivate mindful eating may take 21 days, 80 days, 90 days. So experiment ourselves.
Yeah, and also maybe perhaps if I could add on, maybe taking baby steps would also help. You don't necessarily have to go from 0 to 100 straight away. You could always take little steps towards mindful eating. And I really, myself, I can't wait to adopt whatever strategies that has been shared today into my lifestyle after this. So for that is actually our last question that we can take for the day. But don't worry, for those that had questions that were unanswered, we will contact you personally with the answers. So make sure you check out and you're aware of what's going on in your email, because we will contact you through your email. Other than that, we have a special surprise. As we have mentioned, 10 lucky winners will be contacted to receive a free consultation with a dietitian from Diet Ideas. So stay tuned and keep checking your inbox on your emails. And before we end, I'd like to highlight to our amazing audience that if you are interested in joining Diet Ideas, you can contact us through our social media or through our website, as well as the contact details that are displayed on the screen right now. So I'll give you a few minutes to just screenshot maybe, or just get the information down. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, we're not that hard to find. Just type Diet Ideas on Google or type Diet Ideas on Instagram, on Facebook. We're very easy to find. So make sure you do contact us for anything at all. At Diet Ideas, we try our very best to work with you in helping you build healthier lifestyle. And we want to thank Dr. Jamila and Mr. Muhammad Siddiq Azhar for taking their time today on a Saturday morning to share their amazing gems with us. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining, and we look forward to see you in more Diet Ideas session in the future. Have a good day. Take care.
My
Yeah.
pleasure. Thank you so much for having me today. Have a good weekend, everyone. Bye bye.
Bye.